Shalom. We are about to begin. Allow yourselves to settle and arrive. We're just checking the technology here. Beautiful. Okay. So delightful to be here with all of you again. I am Rabbi Chasya Uriel Steinbauer, the founder and director of the Institute for Holiness, Makom LeKedusha, Kehilat Mussar Mindfulness, based in the Galil in Israel, and with students and practitioners and subscribers and those who support us from all over the world. We join on Zoom together. And this is live stream, our weekly offering, our public offering of awakening Torah Mussar Mindfulness, where we look at the weekly Torah portion from the Hebrew Bible from the lens of Torah, of course, with Mussar and mindfulness from Theravada Buddhism, where we look at what our ancestors have to share with us, what God has to share with us, to get the most out of it, so that we can be on this path, becoming over time with community the best versions of ourselves in service of God and others. So I'm delighted to be here with you. Today is Wednesday, May 1st, 2024, in the Gregorian calendar. It is now almost noon here in Israel. We have left the Passover, Pesach holiday, both in Israel and, of course, Chutz La'aretz and diaspora was your last day yesterday. I hope it was a liberatory holiday, one that was meaningful, that you could reflect with family and friends and community. What is it that we need to do to keep one foot in front of the other, supporting one another during these very difficult, challenging times, both because of the genocide and kidnappings and captives and ongoing war, but also the Jew hatred throughout the world, particularly in the West. So we are here to jump in together. We are covering this week, because I told you last week we're a little bit behind, Shemini. So that is the third Torah portion in the book of Leviticus, Vayikra. And we covered it on April 6, 2024, which the Hebrew date with Kaf Zayin, the 27th of Adar Bet from the previous Hebrew month, Tav Shen Pei Dalet, 5784 of the Hebrew year. We're going to jump into our kavanot, our intentions for today's session, which if you are watching on video, you will see this before you. If you are listening by audio or podcast, then you'll hear me kind of summarize these kavanot, these intentions for today's practice together. So we see this time together as an act of radical self-care, also connection and care for the other, and our relationship with the divine, God, Hashem, however we define that relationship. So doing this act of spending time to learn and practice mindfulness meditation together, we're strengthening our own souls in order to be of benefit to others. So we ask for God's help and taking refuge in community, that we strengthen each other's souls to be of benefit to others. And that also in strengthening our relationship to others, we want to be a better conduit of God's good to others when they need us. And there's so much need right now. And finally, as we are strengthening our relationship with the Creator, the divine of all life, we do so to be this conduit, this vessel, to bring that which is good, that is so needed among the planet today. So this is our intentions, our kavanot for today. May we merit fulfilling them on behalf of our ancestors and all of us committed to making this world a better place today. So I'm going to stop sharing and go into a summary of Parshat Shemini, okay? So why is it called Shemini? It comes from the same root shorish of Shmona or Shmone, the 8th day. Because as you've been following this whole time in Vayikra and then Tzav, is this training of the priests, the Kohanim, through their master teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, they are learning how to create the holy service in the Mishkan, in the sanctuary. And on the 8th day is going to be the coming out, the celebration, the opening of the Mishkan to the community that they've now engaged for 7 days of really intense preparations and practice. And now they're ready to move forward. So let's give a summary. As I said, Shemini means 8th, and it refers to the day after the Niluim, inauguration, the service, essentially, that we learned about last week. And it's going to be the first day of the regular routine using the Mishkan, the sanctuary, that our ancestors, Bnei Israel, the children of Israel in the Midbar, are starting to not only have built, but are ready to create this formal service. Aharon, the high priest and brother to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, prepares korbanot, sacrifices, and he and Moshe bless the children of Israel, Bnei Israel, the Israelites. So what's important here to realize is, as I mentioned last week, is korban, this sacrificial offering that one brings, has the shorish, the root of kuf resh bet, krov, which means to draw near. And this is essentially how our ancestors drew near to the Almighty, is by bringing this offering. This is something that should always be kind of in the back of our minds, is how are we drawing near today? Of course, we have all the mitzvot, the commandments and the traditions that we follow in Judaism. And it is my intention, one of my purposes given to me by God, to really show all of you and live it, this path of Mussar mindfulness, as how we are drawing near and on this path. That it's a chiyuv, it's an obligation, one we want to fulfill. So then a fire from Hashem, from God, consumes the korbanot. And this is a sign, an oath, right? From God's presence, showing the people that the drawing near, the gifts of drawing near have been accepted, right? And seeing this, our ancestors sang out and bowed down. The last time they sang out was when they had crossed the Sea of Reeds in safety with God's help after their oppressor, the one who had enslaved them for over 400 years, was chasing after them in order to kill them or re-enslave them. So this is a beautiful example of gratitude and relief that they're singing out, right? And unfortunately, something really sad and unpleasant, and it's for some people really a catastrophe, happens next, which is really Nadav and Avihu, which are the sons of Aharon, the high priest, the brother to Moshe. They, who knows their intention, their reasons? It's many commentators throughout this past 2,500 years have discussed this. What would drive two priests who had just been trained for 7 days to bring something that wasn't commanded from the outside chambers to the inside, which is forbidden, that they weren't commanded, to bring their own personal strange fire, that which was not requested or even instructed to do. Okay, they come and they bring this before God, and they are actually consumed. And the odd thing about it is their bodies remain. So it's almost like their soul was taken, their soul was consumed. We don't know if it was burnt body that remained, but there was definitely a body that remained because their own cousins have to remove them afterwards. It's a very painful episode. Later in a pasuk later on, it commands the priests not to consume alcohol when they're doing service, that is absolutely forbidden. So then that led some commentators to say, well, Nadav and Avihu must have been drinking. They were under the influence. We don't know. We really don't know. All we know is they did something they shouldn't have done. And the way it gets worded by Moshe to his brother is that God is sanctified. God, there's evidence of God becoming more holy, or we can't even have the right verb for this in Hebrew, in English. Like I would say holified, but it doesn't, like we could say sanctified, but through those who serve him. Okay, the key thing that we want to pay attention to right now is just that when Aharon finds out, which is it's a little odd to think Moshe and him had stepped into a different location of the Mishkan, and this happened. So how soon does he find out? Who knows? He finds out and he is silent, meaning there's no speech. I do want to touch base on this when I finish the summary, because people think that because he was silent, he didn't say anything, he didn't speak anything, he didn't express anything, or there was no message conveyed. Okay, and that's we'll address this. Okay, then as we pass this episode, this story, God teaches the rules about which animals are kosher, the system of kashrut that Jews are allowed to eat or not. So for land animals, it's if they have split hooves and chew their cud, both together. For fish, if they have fins and scales, both together. For birds, the Torah listed around 20 birds that are not acceptable, that are not kasher, that are not kosher. So any bird not on that list is considered kosher. And finally, insects. If there are kinds of grasshopper or locusts listed in the Torah portion, then that is permitted. Obviously, if you know anything about the history of Jews regarding these insects, there's only certain communities that claim that they know which one of these are the grasshoppers and locusts the Torah refers to. And some of those communities don't even consume them, despite having that heritage, that lineage of knowing what is kosher and what's not. So that is our summary. Obviously, there's lots to be said here. I think the key thing I want to point out is something very important that both Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher Moses, and Aharon, the high priest, his brother, what they both teach us about anger, ka'as, what they teach us about loss, which often gets translated into frustration or anger for a lot of people, especially when they don't want to feel the pain of loss, and about silence or speech. And what we can learn from it. It's mostly a reflection for ourselves is, how do we behave when there's great loss? Is there reactivity immediately, and do we actually react? Maybe we shut down in a form of silence. There's different ways that people classically respond to that which they haven't metabolized, which we talk about trauma being in the body. And so let's just take a look at these, okay? So, and for those of you following along in Shemini, we're in Leviticus chapter 9, number 1, verse 1, and it goes until chapter 11, verse 47, okay? So, when you look at Moshe, our teacher, who is considered the greatest of all of our Nevi'im, our prophets, he was by nature quick-tempered, quick to anger, okay? And the thing that you need to know about his anger is that he wasn't angry, he wasn't quick-tempered at everything, or just all the time. It wasn't like, there's some people that you're probably aware of, either in your life or experience, where if they have to wait in line, they get quick-tempered. If they get cut off in a car, they're quick-tempered. Just all the daily frustrations that can affect us. This is not the quick temper of Moshe Rabbeinu. His anger was always, if you want to say provoked, I would say triggered by the dread of sin or seen injustice or even the violation of law. Okay, even before God had revealed God's self to him. Okay, before Moshe had this personal one-on-one relationship with God, there are 3 occasions in the Torah that record this quick to anger, quick and reactivity, a response. Some people, we could argue, is this a response or reactivity? But first, what does he do? He sees an Egyptian who is in the process of beating a Hebrew slave, most likely to death, is about to kill the Hebrew slave. And so he intervenes immediately at this outrage, at this injustice, and he kills the Egyptian. Okay. Then there are 2 Hebrews who witnessed this act. He didn't know that they witnessed it. And this is a different form of, I don't even know if you want to call it quick to anger, but there's a reactivity here. They approach him and say, we see, who do you think you are, this prince? We saw what you did, right? And so what does he do? He flees, okay? And we talk about those classic responses. You either fight, which is what he did with the Egyptian. He fled when he gets in the confrontation with the Hebrews, not so much with them and what they said, it's just out of fear of violence, potential death by the hand of Paro, of Pharaoh. Okay, there's also freezing, someone who just absolutely can't function at all. They shut down. And then there's fawning, right, where you try to placate the person who's about to cause you harm and suffering, right? And then the other occasion where he's quick to anger is when he defends Yitro's daughters against the shepherds. Okay, so this is another example where he sees injustice of how these shepherd women are being treated, and he intervenes. Okay, and it's not always. It's not often when we think of someone who's quick to anger, we think that it's rash, that they end up acting out in ways that they'll regret later. We don't get that sense at all. If anything, this is why I kind of question if it's reactivity or more of a response on his behalf. Like the fact that when he's about to kill the Egyptian, he looks left to right. There is mindfulness there. There is a pause. There is an awareness about what I'm about to do at this injustice. Okay, it's not the heat of passion moments where, somebody just blindly kills somebody in a fit of rage. That's not what we witness. When he reproaches the Hebrew and is absolutely shocked that they are hitting or fighting with one another, he has this real internal moral compass of how he thinks we are to behave and treat one another. So when the Hebrews are arguing with one another and he intervenes, and that's when they say, who do you think you are, Mr. Prince? We saw what you did, that you killed that Egyptian, right? So in that moment, he's just, again, seeing himself, this is like kind of a lack of ethics and morality happening between the 2 Hebrews that he finds to be not acceptable. Okay, so he speaks up. The last one, of course, of intervening on the behalf of Yitro's daughters, again, I think that is done with mindfulness. It's a response. So even though he might be quick to anger because of what the injustice he sees around him, or dread of sin, or violation of law, they're usually, at least up until he has a private relationship with God, there is a pausing and a response. Okay, so as he develops a relationship with God and then with his people, as a prophet and leader, he became angry. Okay, every time he saw their trust in God weakening, their faith waning, okay? Gets frustrated, he takes it personally, internalizes it, he gets angry. And so in these cases, the anger is there because he saw or suspected it from him. This is judgment on his part, and not always do we have to question, is it balanced? Not always does he have balanced judgment, like a wise discernment. So here he always suspected inadequate fulfillment of a task or lack of faith in God. Okay, so this is who, in all his vitality, what Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher Moses, brings. And some of it, I think, is spot on in the sense of what, with our own moral compass and the laws that we live by as Jews and those who follow parts of Jewish law or the Noahides or any of our practitioners in the Institute of Holiness who identify not as Jewish but follow kind of the ethical and moral precepts of the Noahide laws, and just have that internal moral compass that we talk about, which we talk about is Yirat Hashem, this fear and awe of God, the way our ancestors did before the Torah was given to us. So there is a certain moral code that we are to recognize, and we're not to accept when we see that people are violating it. Today, the language we would use is, I'm not sure if we would get the same way about, I mean, there are people who definitely get really frustrated and angry when they see people's trust in God weakening or their faith waning. To me, that same passionate, quick to anger comes and should come when people are threatening to or about to cause harm and suffering, or they have caused harm and suffering. That's not acceptable. We should not accept that. And we should, with mindfulness, respond wisely, quickly, efficiently, with zerizut, without delay. So that's Moshe. That's him and his model. And often with Moshe, there's a lack of silence when there needs to be sometimes. That will come up. And by silence, I mean using silence as a tool in order to pause and reflect. Doesn't mean that you have to stay in the silence. I don't think anyone should stay in silence too long, unless it's life-affirming and part of their path. So for him, that's our reflection of Moshe. So here comes Aharon, his brother, in this Torah portion, right? What happens with Aharon? Aharon just finds out that his two sons, Nadav and Avihu, have been consumed, killed, taken by the fire of God. And the language that is used is that he becomes silent, but that's not the best definition of the verb use, because it's not shatika. It's not silence as we know it. I want us to look at the actual Hebrew. Let me find the verse. It's instead a certain type of how do I translate this in English? It's that kind of internalization, like a constriction, internalization, that one goes into. It's a silent place, but it's a different form of silence. And so it's actually incorrect when people talk about this as tika. silent that way. It's not silent. So let me find what I like to say it is, and that we should be really mindful of, is a lack of speech, a lack of talking, of using words that come out of the mouth. He's speaking. He's communicating something through the state that he's in. Be very clear about that. He's communicating in a way that I don't think words could do justice. You're dealing with an almighty God. You're dealing with the fragility of being human, and that the almighty God decided to take your sons, which wasn't personal against you, for the behavior that they did that they shouldn't have done. And you are the head representative of the whole community in this sanctuary. We talk about what the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, used to have to wear, where he is to the signs of the 12 tribes on his shoulders, right? Kadosh LaAdonai, that he's sanctified to Hashem. In that moment, we talk about wearing different hats, right? And that moment, Aharon, father, high priest, brother, servant to God, all of the above, human being, right? It's extremely profound. I think in some ways we shouldn't even judge it or look at it from our own perspective, because not one of us has ever had two of our children consumed by fire by God that I know of. So we are to tread lightly with this and come, right, with compassion. I want to see where I can find. So Moshe comes to him, right? We talk about Moshe not being silent when he should have been sometimes, right? That he needed to practice that. So he comes to Aharon immediately, right? Vayomer Moshe el Aharon, and he says to him, Hu asher diber Adonai lemor. This is that which the Lord spoke, saying. So he's gonna give him a teaching by God right there in that moment. Bikrovai ekadesh ve'al pnei chol ha'am ekaved. By those who are near unto me, I will be sanctified. I will be holified. I will become holy. And before all the people, I will be glorified. That's it. That's all he says to him. And this is what Aharon, right? Ready? Here we go. Vayidom Aharon. It doesn't say that he became quiet, right? It's a different verb with a different meaning. It signifies a kind of shutting down, because his heart, but the domain is a mineral, right? So a Bravanel reads a source saying, his heart turned to lifeless stone. He did not weep or mourn like a bereaved father, nor did he accept Moshe's consolation, for his soul had left him and he was speechless. I don't think Moshe's words were consolation. I guess he, in that moment, spoke to him as the high priest. He didn't speak to him as a brother. So what we learn, and who knows if Aharon did this with pause and with mindfulness, it might have been full reactivity, a complete shutting down, right? It's just important to notice how the two leaders of our people, very different roles, respond to might be perceived as injustice, right? So, to this day, we all question, why did the sons have to be taken? Maybe Aharon felt it was just, but there was still to hold both, something that, and this is not unlike what we are going through today. I'll provide a brief example. It pains all of us so deeply that not only are our children who are fighting the war in Gaza and up in the north in Hezbollah, we're losing our children's lives, that the kidnapped are maybe dying each day, and some have died already. It pains us, and also pains us that all the civilians, children, women, men, everything, that unfortunately are collateral deaths in this horrible war that we did not ask for. And to hold both, that these deaths that are happening in Gaza are necessary and painful and have to be accepted. At the same time, we must continue to secure our borders and rid Gaza of Hamas. And to be able to hold both is painful and hard, but is that reality that we are in. Similar to that moment when Aharon faces the loss of his two sons and knows that he must continue in his service and in his role. So it's a big, tall order, right? In the sense of may we always be able, in our anger and our frustration, be able to pause, to not fully freeze, perhaps the way Aharon did, and not fully act in a rash way either, that we will see Moshe especially do later on. That there be a pause, a reflection, wise discernment, that we strengthen each other and be able to hold that so impure, unpleasant gray. That this is true, this is happening, and this is true, and this is happening. So with that, we're going to move into our mindfulness meditation. And may we take the lessons of Shemini to heart in our daily practice. So I invite you into your posture that you assume for mindfulness meditation, whether it's seated in your chair or on the zafu, the sitting cushion, whether you're walking back and forth, nowhere in particular, whether you want to stand in a strong mountain pose, or if you need to lie down, just do so with eyes open so you remain awake and alert. And I'm going to remain seated. I come to the edge of my seat. And we're going to start, we want to really ground our feet so that we feel held. Okay, this is part of the meditation, especially during very difficult times. Anyone who comes with trauma should ground the feet, should really feel them held by the earth, knowing that you are between heaven and earth. And I'm smiling because I have a lovely akavish, a spider crawling on my computer right now. All of God's creatures, right? So you want to be grounded. If you're ever feeling too intense, insecure, not safe, open your eyes and look around the room. making sure that you understand that you're here with me in this shared sacred space, this live streaming on Zoom and on our YouTube channel, wherever you're joining us today or on the podcast. And you want to be upright, not West Point stiff, as Jod Kabat-Zinn loves to remind us, but you want to sit dignified. You are created in the image and likeness of the divine, and that's how you should feel and sit. Are you ever having a bad day where you're feeling low self-esteem, not centered and balanced in the midah of anava, of humility? Remember, you are a child of the divine, right? Created here for a purpose. And we'll begin. Rest your hands wherever it is comfortable. It could be on your lap, holding on your chest. 3 deep inhalations. Inhalation and exhale. I say this every time, but it's such a miracle to me after that first inhalation, how much my shoulders and my shoulder blades drop and relax. I hope you feel that too. Inhalation and exhale. Close your eyes if you feel safe or comfortable. If not, lower your gaze before you if you have vision. And this last one, raise your shoulders up and let them fall on the exhale, coming to this full settling and quietness, inviting yourself fully to arrive. Head, heart, soul, spirit. Beginning to give yourself a deep self-compassionate and self-care scan. Starting at the top of your head, noticing the sensations in the body, any strong emotions associated in the body. Moving down your face, your eyes. Notice if your eye muscles are tight, your cheeks. Notice if the tongue is even tight. Let it just lie and relax in the mouth. Letting the jaw fall slightly open. Down to the back of the neck and the front of the neck. Down the shoulders. Down the shoulder blades and the chest. Feeling the oxygen flow in and out, this gift from God. No need to control the breath anymore, letting it fall to its own natural rhythm. Noticing how the belly feels. We can hold a lot of tension in the stomach and the chest. Allowing it to soften and relax, maybe even rubbing the belly. Same thing with the low back, the sit bones and the hips. Moving down the thighs, the knees, even moving down your arms at the same time, and the elbows to the wrists and the hands. Inviting ease in the inhalation and relaxing on the exhalation. Moving down the lower part of the leg to the ankles, the feet and the arches and the toes. This gift of being embodied in this body. That we've been given one to be agents on behalf of God. How can you use this body today to bring God's good to others? How can you practice radical self-care so you have the wherewithal, the toolbox and skills and energy and courage to act when you should? Taking refuge in this practice and path together, taking refuge in God, in the Torah, Mussar Mindfulness, and the path, the Eightfold Path, taking refuge in your teacher, in your community. Some call Sangha, some call Vad. What is here for you? Noticing if the thoughts are beginning to calm some, or if you're having monkey minds, thoughts jumping here and there, reminiscing about something in the past or planning for something in the future. Simply notice without judgment, just compassion, gentleness, and kindness. What is here for you, right here and right now? Notice how things arise and then they pass. It's always so important during these ongoing wars and the daily battles that we find ourselves in as Jews and supporters of Zionism, the state of Israel, of Israelis and of Jews. Thank you to all our allies. So important that we pause, take time in this practice to reflect what is arising in me, because so much is and probably should be arising. And here in this practice, we can see it for what it is, call help from God and community and practice, and metabolize it. As our teacher, Rick Hansen, says, metabolize these daily experiences, let them go, let them fall as needed. What is it that you need that is life affirming, that is nurturing, that will care for you and those that you love who are around you? How can our Shemini, our eighth day, be different? How can we come to serve in our daily Mishkan, in our homes, in our communities, in our synagogues, our places of worship, out on the streets, that we can walk out clean hands, pure heart, knowing that we are in alignment with our moral compass and our values. To do what must be done. And allow yourself to feel it. You've been counseling yourself. This is hard. This is so difficult. This hurts. This is uncomfortable. I don't want this. I want this to go away. Noticing all the narrative, the storytelling arise. What does your voice say? Is it aversion? I want this to go away. Is it over-identifying? Oh my gosh, how do I fix this? This is about me. Is it, for some of you, shutting down like Aharon, this sloth and torpor, even rounding in the shoulders and coming down, of falling asleep and nodding in the practice, falling asleep at life because it feels too much, too difficult? What is it? What is your reactivity that wants you to awaken to it, to treat it with a kind hand, to ask yourself, can I be with this? For some of us, we can be plagued by doubt. Maybe I'm not right. Maybe this is not the right path. Maybe we're not making the right decisions. And that doubt can go on and on to the point where you freeze. And then you don't act at all. It is said in Buddhism that doubt is the most difficult of all the obstacles to our balanced practice. So if you are there right now, hold the doubt with me. No, there's nothing wrong with you that you're having doubt. The common humanity is that many people are sharing this with you, this shared humanity. Notice how the doubt feels in the body. We always say in the Jewish tradition of Musar that doubt, a tiny bit, is a bit healthy. It's a sign of balanced humility, that you don't trust on your own knowledge only. You trust in God. You verify with community and others. We have to be able to pivot and reevaluate daily and move forward and live with the consequences of our behavior and actions. I had a lovely guest that I did not know before Pesach, before the Seder. She came from another country. She was here in Israel, and I welcomed her and two of her friends to the Seder, which is our tradition to invite all who are hungry, who need a place to come. And she even said herself, a wise young woman of 18 years old, that as much as we must do, we must fight Hamas and end Hamas, rid Hamas of Gaza. As much as we must do this, we also know that our lives have changed forever. And we will have to live with that. And she's right. And that's deeply uncomfortable for many of us. So much so that we might practice aversion. We might try to run away from this experience in order to pretend that we are clean, that we are not involved in this. Trust in your heart our right to defend ourselves and create safety in our borders, and our right to thrive and exist. Self-compassion towards yourself, giving yourself nurturing if it's painful, if the doubt is there. Taking this practice and moment daily to touch in with yourself of what obstacle you may be facing to all that which is before us. Acknowledging, investigating, accepting. God, grant us the ability, and some say the serenity, to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom and the wise discernment to know the difference, and the strength to act on that practice and path together. Allowing a minute of silence to allow yourself to fully metabolize today's practice, allowing it to move through and exit with the exhalation. And if you notice it's stuck and is not leaving you today, that's okay. No need to panic, to think you're doing it wrong or you're a bad meditator. Just know that you'll carry this burden today, and you're not alone. We'll carry it with you. Just say, this is going to be one of those days. I feel the heaviness. And then throughout your day and your practice, notice if that heaviness shifts, if it goes away. I trust it will with time. 1 minute of silence. If you had your eyes closed during this practice, gently and slowly open them, allowing the light to come in. Join us on this sacred shared Zoom stream or live streaming, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're joining us. Give yourself a great bow to the Almighty for bringing us together today, Shehianu moment that we're alive and that we can practice, be together, to learn, to move to expansion, to the dignity among us. Give yourself a bow to our ancestors and teachers before us for giving us these traditions and practices to be able to be on this path towards holiness. And give yourself a slight bow to even your own practice, the discipline, the joy that you have shown up and arrived. God bless you. God bless us all. Holding you all. We will come together, I believe, tomorrow, maybe even later today, for Tazria. And then we have Metzora, and then we'll be caught up as Rat Hashem, God willing. I want to thank all of you who continue to be strong supporters of this public offering of awakening Torah Mussar Mindfulness. We continue to gain subscribers on YouTube. Thank you. Please subscribe to our newsletter and website at kehilatmussar.com. Consider becoming a member of the community where you'll join us in private offerings and monthly meditations for our Rosh Chodesh, our new moon gathering, and consider engaging in this path together and a small group led by me. When you're ready, you can reach out for an interview and to move forward. So grateful to all of you. Take care of yourselves on this 8th day of counting the Omer. It is the 207th day that our beloved people have been hostages. So trying to count and hold those one day at a time.